When you look at the research around happiness, researchers have put happiness into two big categories. One is hedonic happiness, and hedonic happiness is, am I having fun right now? It's the moment to moment fluctuating experiences that you have. And let's go back to the metaphor. It's like the waves in the ocean. They come and they go. You can jump in, you can play, you can have fun, and then it's over. And then there is the deeper happiness, the eudaimonic happiness, which is the sense of your life having meaning, of you feeling fulfilled and thriving in that life of yours. And it's important for you to understand that happiness has these two buckets, because I think what happens for a lot of us, and this kind of gets to Andrea's question, is that maybe you have one type of happiness. Maybe you're having a lot of fun on the surface, but life doesn't feel very meaningful. Or maybe you're deep in it, but you're not having any fun. And so I really want to unpack the difference between these two things and why you need both before we jump into the three different ways that you can increase happiness in your life. And so let's go to another question from a listener named Rachel.
Hey Mel, I absolutely love your podcast and all of your work. I have a very loaded question, and I know a one-size-fits-all answer might not exist, but I wanted to ask anyway. How can I truly be happy? How do I cultivate happiness? I read so many self-help books, read a lot about the effects of childhood trauma. I journal. I try to be conscious of my habitual thoughts and patterns and work to reframe them. I exercise. I'm always listening to inspiring and transformational content like you. I feel like I do all the things, but I still struggle just to be happy and to feel happy. And I feel very stuck in the same emotions, and I really want to change. I really want to enjoy my life. Do you have any advice?
Rachel, I so relate to you. And I want to just pass the mic to you listening right now. When Rachel said, I just want to enjoy my life, didn't you get the chills? Didn't you nod along and say, yeah, I just want to enjoy my life too? And this is really on my mind because I think that's the point of life, right? To really try to enjoy it. And one of the things that I notice can happen when you are in a period in your life where you're trying to heal, you're investing in yourself, in your personal growth. You mentioned that you're working on trauma. You're trying to dig out of some of the holes maybe that you feel like you fell into. You're trying to change your mindset. That's serious work. That was me for years too. Here's the problem with having a big healing journey. You're not having any fun. I think about periods of my life when I was going through a lot of change and I was working on myself and I was doing everything that you're doing. Every book I picked up was self-help. Everything that I listened to was self-improvement. I couldn't even remember the last time I read a fiction novel or I went to a concert or I went to a party. Everything got so serious because my focus became so serious. And my focus was about improving my life, improving my life, improving my life. And doing the work to change your life, it's important. Doing the work to identify toxic patterns that you have or bad thinking patterns that make you feel like shit, that's super important. But you must also double down on the fun while you're doing the deeper work. And so the first thing that I want you to do is I want you to set an intention that your number one goal this year is to have more fun, to invest in that first category, hedonic happiness, that researchers say is so important. Because yes, it's meaningful. Yes, it's fulfilling to do the hard work to change your life for the better. But changing your life for the better also means that you need more moments of fun in your life. And I worry a lot about this based on what we've all experienced in the past 3 years. We've all become hermits. It's hard enough to get yourself out of your house. But the other thing that's happened is if you're not going into work, if you're still working from home, You're also missing out on all of the spontaneous stuff that happens when you bump into people when you're out and about. In fact, I can tell you a story. Just the other night, it was Sunday night. And, as a bit of background, my husband and I had gotten some really awful news last week that a very, very close friend of ours suddenly died. Age 47, heart attack, gone. And I had been holed up in my house ever since hearing the news. I was super sad, feeling down, and I hadn't left the house in days. And so on Sunday, Chris says to me, Mel, I made a 4:30 reservation at the paddle tennis courts, which is a kind of form of almost like ping pong that you can play, sort of like pickleball in the middle of the winter on these tennis courts outside with some friends. It was the last thing I wanted to do. I wanted to just curl up on the couch and suck my thumb and feel sad. And we got into the car, and the entire ride over, I was sitting there thinking, should I tell Chris I'm pissed that he made this date with this couple to go play paddle? Should I tell him this is the last thing that I want to do? I kept saying to myself, should I say this? Should I not say it? And then I would say, no, don't shit on his parade. Like, just suck it up. It's going to be okay. We pull up. The sun's starting to go down. It's freezing. I've got a hat on and mittens on, and I'm grumpy, and I don't really want to be there. And then I see our friends, and I felt a little lighter. Do you know it took about 5 seconds of hitting that ball around for me to feel totally different? The truth is, I needed the fun. I needed the laughter. I needed to not be thinking about something so heavy. I needed to see people that I really like. I needed to do something that wasn't that serious, like working on myself or feeling sad or grieving. I needed fun. And getting out on that paddle court, it was fun. And there's a part of me that is sitting here going, Mel, are we really having a conversation right now on this podcast about the obvious? That we need to schedule time to have fun, that we need to force ourselves out of our houses, that we need to break this habit of being isolated and lonely? Yeah, we do have to have this conversation, because I don't think you and I have truly grasped the extent to which our day-to-day lives and our happiness has been impacted by these past 3 years. I mean, even those of us who really enjoyed that period of lockdown where we were trapped inside with our families, this new normal, this part of it, where we're sort of back to normal, but we're not, but we're coping, but we're like this situation, the loneliness and isolation, it feels like it's become everybody's new lifestyle. It's our new default. But this isn't just obvious, it's well researched. Researchers have proven that the difference between people who are happy and those of us who aren't is that happy people prioritize doing things that make them happy. I know, it's so dumb, but I need the reminder too. So now let's go back to my analogy about the ocean and the beach and waves and happiness. And I want you to just imagine that you're sitting on the beach. And those waves are rolling in and they're rolling out, and there's a boogie board sitting next to you. At some point, you have to get off the towel and you got to run into that ocean and you got to go play. And the fact is, it just takes one person to get everybody else to go. There's always that one person in a group of people at a beach who stands up first and grabs the boogie board and says, let's go body surfing. Come on, guys, let's go into the waves. And thankfully, this past Sunday night, for me, it was Chris. He was that one person. And look, being intentional about enjoying your life, about having fun, particularly during those periods of time where you're grieving, where you are going through something difficult, where life feels heavy, prioritizing fun is critical. But that's just one of the 3 things that you and I are going to discuss when it comes to getting intentional and amplifying up the 40% of happiness that is within your control right now. And if you're sitting there scratching your head going, oh my God, this is so me, but Mel, like, I think I forgot how to have fun. Don't worry about it. I've got an entire episode that we did a while back called How to Have More Fun, and I will link to that along with all the studies that we're talking about in the show notes. And so now that you and I have been playing in the waves and you understand that dragging yourself out of the house to the beach, off the towel, into the ocean, and forcing yourself to do things that are fun, that is part of happiness that we cannot escape, you and I are now going to go deeper into the ocean. And we're going to talk about the 2 other elements that you can tap into to create more happiness in your life right now. And we're going to do that using more questions from fellow listeners of the podcast when we come back. Welcome back. I'm Mel Robbins, and you and I are talking about what research says about creating more happiness in your life. We've already talked about the fact that researchers have identified 2 types of happiness: hedonic happiness and eudaimonic happiness, both of which are critical to your overall feelings of happiness. And we've talked about why getting intentional about having more fun is critical to you feeling happier now. Now we're going to jump into the deeper part of happiness, and that is the eudaimonic happiness, whether or not your life has meaning. Because when you go through periods of life where life is monotonous, it just feels kind of blah, you're on autopilot, you're not going to feel that happy. Just ask Jenna.
Hey Mel, my name is Jenna, and my question for you is, how do you truly find happiness in everyday ordinary life? I'm a mom of 2 boys, and I struggle most days with being as joyful as I was when they were very little.
As a mother of 3 kids who are now young adults, I can relate to what you were saying about how you were joyful when they were little. And I love that you use the word joyful, because I want to go back to that metaphor that I introduced at the very beginning of an ocean, and thinking about an ocean when you think about happiness. And so to me, when you go to the beach and it's a very, very calm day, there are no waves, there might not even be a cloud in the sky. Boy, it sure is beautiful. Happiness is like a still ocean on those days. It's your ability to stand in that ocean and feel this state of presence and connectedness and gratitude to simply being in the ocean. And I want to come back to something that you also said that I absolutely loved. You used the word ordinary. And the reason why I think it's important for us to focus in on the word ordinary is we often make the mistake of thinking that happiness is this big thing, this big burst, the big wave. And when it comes to the eudaimonic happiness, the deeper meaning in your life that creates the sense of happiness and fulfillment for you, I want to flip this perspective, because true happiness comes from finding the extraordinary in the ordinary. That's right. True happiness is actually pretty ordinary. And researchers have identified the number 1 factor in you living a happy life. And it is the most ordinary thing on the planet, which is why most of us miss it. And that's the quality and depth of your relationships. So let's unpack this. The Harvard study of adult development is the longest in-depth longitudinal study of human life that's ever been done. I mean, this has been going on for 84 years and counting. And for those of you super geeks like me out there, this used to be called the Harvard Men Study. So when you hear people talking about the Harvard study of adult development, that's the new name for this. And it now includes 3 generations of people that they've been studying. The original 724 participants now include 1,300 descendants. How cool is that? And here's the thing about this study. This study followed people through their life, asking them all kinds of questions as people aged. And one of the reasons why this study is so profound is because it tracked people as they lived. Most studies have people looking backwards, which means, when you look backwards, you often change the details. That's why the Harvard study of adult development is so exciting and so accurate, and the most accurate and important study of happiness that's ever been done. Not only because they have so much data and brain imaging scans, but they've also been studying people in real time, tracking them forward as they're living their lives. And Dr. Robert Waldinger is the fourth director of the study, and he and past study leaders have published these amazing findings that you and I can apply to our lives. These results from the Harvard Men's Study, they've been replicated in 5 other huge global studies. And I'm telling you all this because there's one singular conclusion from all of this data, all of this research, all of these fancy institutions. And it's this: good relationships keep you happier and healthier. Good relationships make you happier and healthier. The single best decision you can make to improve your health and happiness is to cultivate what researchers call warm relationships. I know what you're thinking. Mel, what the hell are warm relationships? Well, from a clinical standpoint, warm relationships are relationships that don't cause conflict, and you feel positive emotions around the people that you have a warm relationship with. Said in a normal person's way, it's basically people that make you feel warm and fuzzy. That's what warm relationships are. And I want you to stop and think right now. Let's apply the science. If you think about people in your life, I just want you to put 2 columns in your mind. Who would you put under the column labeled warm? They give you the warm and fuzzies. You get a text from them. You're like, oh, yeah, okay. You're excited to see them. You feel energized when you make plans. Now there's the cold column. These are people that put you on edge. These are people that drain your energy. These are the people that when they call or text you, you're like bracing for something. I can boil 84 years of research down to one takeaway. You want to be happier? Put all your energy into warm relationships, building them, strengthening them, spending time with those people in the warm column. You do that, you will be a happier you right now. And the second way that you can do that, by the way, prioritizing the warm, is spend less time with people in the cold column. You either need to stop hanging out with them because they're sucking your energy dry, or you got to put some effort into warming them up by forgiving them or reframing how you see them or working on your boundaries so that you're not triggered by them and their negativity doesn't impact your happiness. So keep that visual of a warm and a cold column. And as you meet people in your life, you can immediately feel what they're like. Are they warm? Are they bringing out the fuzzies? Or are you feeling on edge? Because when it comes to happiness, your happiness right now, not the I'll be when happy, the happiness that truly matters, standing in that deep end of the ocean, the quality of your relationships is truly the most important thing that matters. And I can explain why at an even deeper level. The reason why this matters so much, it is the number one indicator of a happy life. Good, warm relationships. Floating in that ocean with your warm buddies, keeping you buoyant. The reason why is evolution. See, positive or warm interactions with people, you know what that does, that warm, fuzzy feeling? Those kind of people in your warm column? They make you feel safe. When you're around those people, you're not on edge, so your body feels safe. And the opposite is true when you're around people that you would put in the cold column, because when you're around negativity, when people trigger you, when they put you on edge, when you feel like you can't be yourself, you're now in a stress response of fight, flight, or freeze. And this response to other people, it's wired in you. Early Homo sapiens survived because their bodies and their brains, they not only encouraged connection, but they also signaled when somebody might be unsafe. You and I survived because we're social beings. So this is hardwired into us. And here's where it gets interesting. When you feel loneliness, your brain perceives that as life-threatening. And loneliness is not just about physical separation from other people. You can feel very lonely in a crowded room. You can feel lonely in a bad marriage. You can feel lonely in a toxic friendship. And if you're nodding your head right now, thinking, wow, maybe it's not unhappiness. Maybe the core issue for me is I'm lonely. Well, 75% of adults feel moderate to high levels of loneliness. And loneliness is about the quality of your relationships. And I want to tie this back to evolution. Loneliness feels threatening because you're meant to survive in a tribe of people. You're meant to be connected with people that make you feel safe and warm. It's not only part of happiness, this goes down to your mind and body needing protection. And they've even proven that when life is really hard, when it can come at you in full-on attack mode, when you're in survival mode, warm, connected relationships protect you from the stress of life. So how do you do this? How do you tap into relationships? It sounds simple, but again, make the column, warm and cold. And then call your friends, text them, arrange time to meet them. So when you feel a pang of loneliness, I want you to understand it's an alarm, just like anxiety. It's a signal that you're missing connection. Please do not ignore it. You may be surprised to hear that I felt this way for a very long time. I kept saying out loud, I'm not happy. I don't feel fulfilled. But when I dug deep into what was really going on for me, the core issue was loneliness. I was having fun. I was really busy. I was doing meaningful work. But deep down inside, I was really lonely. And it may also surprise you to hear that it was during one of the most successful stretches in my career. I was on the road all the time. I was booked nonstop to give speeches. I was working on all kinds of projects with Audible. The business was booming. I was making lots of money. And I have never been unhappier because I was lonely. I was traveling so much, chasing success, chasing achievement, going for the next thing, staying busy, that I never saw my friends. I barely saw Chris. I missed out on a ton of time with our daughters while they were in high school. It was just go, go, go. Now, I had a lot of fun on the business trips. I would laugh a lot. I was always traveling with colleagues, so I wasn't alone. And I was having fun in the waves of life. But when you talk about floating in the deep end of the ocean, I was profoundly lonely. And that meant I was profoundly unhappy. And it can be powerful when you admit this to yourself, because when you realize what you're dealing with is loneliness, that helps you identify the issue you need to improve, which is you need to start reaching out to people. You know, we underestimate the impact that simply getting an unexpected text from an old friend can have on you. I mean, think about how amazing it is when you have a birthday and everybody on social media that gets, you know, the kind of notification that it's your birthday, they come out of nowhere and they wish you happy birthday. It's like, that's unbelievable. It feels so good. You haven't talked to that person since high school, but it feels good to have somebody just give you a quick comment on your birthday. And so if you're sitting around saying, I'm really lonely, but you're not reaching out, you're not calling people, you're not the one making plans or inviting people over for dinner, guess what? You're going to stay lonely. Because when I really looked in the mirror and said, I'm lonely, I need to do something about this. I never get invited anywhere. I don't see anybody. Well, I wasn't inviting anybody over. I wasn't making any plans. It starts with you. And look, it could be anybody. It could be friends, family, coworkers. All you need to do is identify old relationships or cold relationships or warm relationships where you haven't seen somebody in a long time and reach out. And by the way, It could be old relationships. It could be people you haven't seen in a long time. Just anybody at all that makes you feel warm. Start putting energy into talking, texting, commenting, and making plans to see them. And be careful of the cold people, because research shows that spending time with the people in the cold column, it can actually make you feel more lonely. And it even worsens your health to be around people like that. And so you've got your friend Mel Robbins' permission to stop putting energy into draining relationships, because that's only going to make you feel more lonely, and spend more time with warm relationships. And that brings me back to Jenna's question, because she mentioned, did you notice that she felt happier when her kids were little? I suspect that when your kids were little, you were probably part of mom groups. You saw young moms all the time at drop-off, at pickup, at play group, and you felt like you were part of something. You had more warm relationships in your life. That's a sign that you're just missing connection. And I know I said it already, but I can't highlight enough how profound of a difference it can make to simply admit to yourself that you're lonely. That was the turning point for me when I realized a couple years ago, holy cow, I'm unhappy because I'm profoundly lonely. I don't see Chris enough, so I'm lonely in my marriage. I am lonely in my family because I'm not around. I'm working all the time. I never see my friends. And so once I said it was loneliness, that was the cause of my unhappiness, I could do something about it. And you want to know the first decision I made? I made a decision that I was going to change my work life, that I was going to get off the road, that Oakley being in high school was like a melting ice cube. And once the time was gone, I was not going to get it back. And so I reorganized my entire career, my entire business. Instead of sitting on a plane, I'm now sitting above my garage talking to you in a microphone so that I can be home. And it took a lot of work, but I'll tell you what, realizing that traveling that much for work was making it hard to cultivate those warm relationships, that was a huge wake-up call, because on the surface, it looked like I was having a great time. I was in the waves, but I sure as hell wasn't when it came to the deeper stuff. And I know what you're thinking. Well, Mel, at least you have friends to go back to. What if I don't have any friends or many friends? Well, I would say this. Here's where you can start. Part of warm relationships and happiness is also cultivated by social interactions, the tiny ones you have every single day. Just talk to strangers. This is a great thing to do, by the way. And there's a study that was done by the University of Chicago that you have no clue how happy a random social interaction with a stranger can make you. You kind of inflate in your mind that it's going to be messy to talk to other people, but you underestimate the actual benefits of talking to other people. People who talk to strangers on a train or on a plane or at a bus stop or just at a coffee shop, they're much happier after they talk to the stranger, even if they don't think beforehand that they will be. You know who's great at this? My mother. I was just visiting my mom down in Florida, and when I was little, I used to think it was so annoying, but I now admire this about her. Absolutely everywhere we go, my mom talks to everybody. She talks to everybody about everything. She's constantly commenting on, oh, I like that sweatshirt, or hey, how you doing, or nice day. And people stop and they talk. And next thing you know, they've made a connection, or they're talking about a restaurant recommendation or it's just amazing. And the energy is immediately boosted. And if you're not good at this, here's a great tip. Always compliment somebody's nails. If somebody is waiting on you or standing in front of you in line, or you're sitting next to them, just compliment their nails. If you see somebody reading, ask them what they're reading and if they like it. That's a simple way to compliment somebody, to open up the dialogue, and it always boosts the energy. And one of the things that I'm really concerned about, and I've talked a lot about this on the podcast, and I know the researchers at Harvard are concerned about this too, and that's remote work. Everybody being at home. When we're at home, we miss out on these tiny social interactions with coworkers, with the barista, with the lady at the checkout counter, with the guy that you always see at the grocery store, with the customers that you're used to seeing come into the store. These tiny social interactions go a long way to making you feel warm. So bottom line, relationships, relationships, relationships. Talk to that stranger in line. Push yourself to reach out to people. Text somebody every single day. And don't forget your family. You kind of put family on the back burner, don't you? Because you think they're always going to be there. Make an effort. There's a lot of people in your family, maybe even cousins you haven't seen in a while, that you have a warm relationship with. I'm prioritizing happiness, which means I'm prioritizing the relationships in my life. But you got to push yourself, okay? Let's make ourselves a promise that we're both going to do this because you got the research and you now know why it matters. Now I want to talk about the third aspect of happiness. And we're going to unpack this with a question from a listener named Steve.
Hey, Mel, this is Steve. Mel, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for being you. Thank you for being your authentic self right there in front of us, changing lives. And you truly are amazing. And I really want you to know that. I was wondering today if you could talk about inner peace and the difference between that as opposed to material possessions, money, status, job titles, you name it. And instead, the feeling of happiness within yourself to be comfortable with. Thank you, Mel.
Oh, Steve, first of all, thank you for saying such kind and heartfelt things about how I'm showing up. I really, really appreciate it. Makes me feel warm. Second, this question about happiness with yourself, inner peace, as opposed to chasing those material possessions, job titles, this is really front and center in my life right now. And so I've been thinking a lot about this person and what he means to me, the person that he was, how he made me feel as a friend. You know, at the end of the day, that's what truly matters, right? I mean, you're never going to see a hearse limo pulling a U-Haul to a graveyard because we can't take all that shit that we've been chasing down in life with us. And it truly doesn't matter. What matters is how you feel about yourself, the kind of person that you are, and what we know based on the research is the quality of the relationships that you have. And the most important relationship is the one you have with yourself. I say it over and over and over again. And that is very closely tied to inner peace. Because if you're beating the hell out of yourself, if your dialogue about yourself is super negative, that's not going to make you happy. And inner peace, the term that you used, it is defined as feeling content and secure. Dr. Daniel Gilbert, who is a professor at Harvard, he did this huge study that close to half of our waking moments are spent thinking about something other than what we are doing in the moment. And so when you talk about inner peace, study after study shows that a wandering mind, thinking ahead, worrying about what's next, I'll be happy when this happens, not being present, that a wandering mind is deeply connected to unhappiness. Because if you're always wandering ahead or worried about what's next or chasing down something that hasn't happened, I'll be happy when, you're never actually in your life. A wandering mind is the opposite of inner peace. And when your mind wanders, and look, you are able to think ahead. You're able to look back. It's one of the amazing things about being human. But when you live in a state where you're never present, you rob yourself of the extraordinary, ordinary moments in life. that inner peace, that contentment, that security, that you're okay, that you're aware of what's happening, that you're present to it. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Research shows that the amount of time that you think you have left to live, it shapes your priorities now. And if you think you have a ton of time, you're often thinking about the future, but you're not in the present right now. Yet, research shows that the nearer you get to the end of your life, the more you begin to appreciate the presence, which is why, despite the fact that most of us, say, oh, old people are grumpy, that's actually not true. That's a myth. Research shows that people are their happiest in the later years of their lives. Why? Because older people, everyone over 70, they're much more likely to be present and not worry about the bullshit that you and I wrap ourselves around the axle about. They're more present in the moment to just be happy with the extraordinary, ordinary aspects of life. I was just with my parents. It's so funny because they're in their 70s, and I noticed their life is very simple. They get up, they go for a walk, they see their friends for breakfast, they play golf, they play mahjong, they read a book, they watch the sunset, they go to a friend's house. They're in the moment. They don't need some big thing to chase. They're just in the moment, enjoying the feeling of living. I want to say that again. Part of inner peace and being present and being alert in your day-to-day life is the feeling of actually living. It means you're no longer an autopilot. You're able to pay attention to what's in front of you. And the real superpower is being able to do that no matter how old you are. Mindfulness just means connecting with the present moment. Inner peace is just about being present. So how can you bring this into your life? There are 2 ways I'm going to suggest that you do this, okay? Number 1, when you are around other people, actually listen to them. I didn't say hear them. I said listen to them. There's a big difference between hearing what somebody says and listening to them. Listening to someone is when you actively give the other person the experience that you are present. And your attention is the most basic form of love that you could give somebody else. And practice listening and being present and making somebody feel like you are right there with them, nodding your head, being in the moment. It is an act of love, and it is a way to cultivate mindfulness and to cultivate that warm connection. The second way that you can tap into this is that when you're doing a task, just something in your ordinary life, hyper focus on it. I call this moving meditation. And I'll give you 2 examples. Number 1, I love to eat nuts, okay? Little confession. I like the blistered peanuts, salted, from Trader Joe's. And I love myself some smoked almonds. So I'll grab a handful of those. And one way that I practice being present and mindful is I eat them one at a time. And I try to notice the difference in taste between one nut and another. And it's pretty surprising. Like, you eat a handful of nuts, you don't really taste a big difference of anything. You eat them one at a time, it's amazing how it pulls you into the moment. The second thing that you can do is I love having a flower right at the kitchen sink because I love flowers and it pulls me right in, and I will stare at that flower and be in the present moment. A third way that I practice this inner peace, I practice this eudaimonic type of happiness in my day-to-day life, is savoring the moments. So last night, I taught Oakley, our son, how to make his absolute favorite recipe, which is from the cookbook 6 Seasons that my mom bought me, and it is called beef with lots and lots and lots of onions. It is the easiest thing on the planet to make. You take a hunk of beef, you brown it, you throw some garlic in, you throw some thyme in, you throw a little butter, little wine in, and lots and lots and lots and lots of onions. That's it. And then you bake that sucker at 300 for like 5 hours. And the whole thing melts into this soupy, messy, amazing goop where the onions disintegrate. And it's like shredded beef and a French onion such and such. And we just had so much fun. I was so in it when we were cooking. And because I was in the moment, I wasn't wandering ahead. I wasn't thinking about anything else. I was with him. I was happy. And so let's go back to our metaphor. Being in the present moment is a lot like walking on the beach. Whether it's a stormy day or the ocean is still, whether it's raining or the sun is rising or the sun is setting, or there are amazing waves that you want to surf. When you're walking on the beach, a great walk is one where you are fully present. You feel the sand between your toes, the wind in your hair, the salt on your skin. You're staring at the ocean and gazing at the beauty no matter what kind of day it is. You're not thinking ahead. You're not reflecting on the past. You're just in the moment, happy. That's what happiness is. And so when you are thinking about happiness, always come back to this metaphor because it embodies 84 years of research and studies around the world. The waves remind you to have fun. Get off that blanket of yours, grab your friends, and jump in the waves and play. The big still ocean, swimming, floating, it reminds you to get into the deep end, and it's way more fun in there if you're floating around with your friends. Nothing like a warm day. You want those warm relationships. Spend more time with them. Invite them to the beach with you. That's who you want on the sand, on the towels, in the water with you. The people that make you feel warm. And finally, walking on the beach, being present, being in the moment, constantly coming back to these 3 fundamental things. And the fact is, you never know how much time you have. You just don't. So now more than ever, I just want you to not only appreciate the moment, I want you to take these small steps to truly enjoy the moment and be happier in your life. I would love for you to talk to the person listening and guide them through the process of locating this core memory so that they have that with them as we move forward and you help us define this philosophy that you've created called a rich life.
I love it. Let's do it.
Okay.
So let's start. We're going to start in your early 20s.
Okay.
And we're going to zigzag throughout our conversation today. We're going to go back to childhood and we're going to go to the future. We'll do it all because that's what money is about. It's about understanding the seasons of life and how money interacts.
Oh, I fucking love this. Okay.
So in my 20s, again, that irrational joy came from being able to buy appetizers. And for everybody here, I want you to think about, you may have been in college, you may have been working at your first job. What was the thing where you said to yourself, I wish I could do that? Or am I ever going to be able to do that? And remember, it's not usually a big thing. It's not, I want to take a round the world trip and stay in all these fancy places. It's often an appetizer. It's being able to pay for your own vacation. It might be, a lot of people joke about it's getting the guac at Chipotle. It might actually be that. There's nothing shameful about a small, vivid aspiration that you had. How do you think everyone listening is going along with this journey so far, Mel?
I think good. Amy?
Okay.
You think we're good? Okay, good. Yeah. My producer's like, this is fantastic.
Okay, good.
We got,
Good.
I think we're all right there. I have a question to ask you to go a little deeper in this, because I noticed that, you've spent a lot of time studying psychology and you, of course, help people change the way they think about money. And I would love to ask you about the way in which your formative years as a child and what you experienced as your parents' emotion or conversation around money, how that impacts your mindset around it. And, I'm asking that because I feel like it must be somehow related to this core memory of, I just wish I could go and take myself on vacation. I wish I could buy the guacamole. I wish I didn't have to worry about the needle on the tank of gas getting to empty and not being able to fill it up. And so for me personally, it's interesting. My parents, my father was the first person in his family to go to college, and he had to pay for it. And my mother also went to college and had to pay for it, and she ended up dropping out to have me. And then my dad got into medical school, and my mom worked nights for the IRS and my dad took care of me at night, and then she took care of me during the day. And we lived in public housing while he was a medical student and when he was a resident in Dayton, Ohio. And then I was in fourth grade when my parents were able to purchase their first home. And my dad did not pay off his medical school loans until late into his 30s. But here's the interesting thing about it. Even though we struggled, and I can relate to we never went out to eat when I was a kid. Not until middle school, anyway. And I never remember my parents being stressed out about money.
What do you remember them saying about money?
Nothing.
They didn't talk about it?
I don't remember them talking about it. And I just had this sense, because there was this ease about it, that if you need something, you figure out how to get it. That there wasn't a lot of griping or complaint. And I know they were trying to make the ends meet. They come from very blue collar, modest families, hardworking. They were very hardworking. And so I just kind of got this thing like money's there when you work for it and you don't need to worry about it. And you know what I mean? Not like I was spoiled or anything. That was not it at all.
Yeah.
But they didn't pass on the stress to me. Now, Chris's family had plenty of money, but there was this huge dialogue. You don't deserve that. We don't have it. You're not going to be spoiled. And so his butt is so clenched when it comes to money. Like the guy's like, how much does the guacamole cost? I'm like, dude, have you seen our checking account? You can afford it. Like he literally adopted this kind of gripping mentality. How does how does that impact the mindset that you have, your early childhood years?
So you just gave us a fantastic journey into your childhood, and if you don't mind,
please,
I'm going to dive a little bit deep and kind of shine a light on what you just told me. Okay. So a lot of this comes from my work on my podcast, and of course on the Netflix show with individuals and couples. And many people believe that money is simply about numbers. And of course, the numbers are a very small part of how we experience money. So when you say your family never really talked about money, but there was a sort of ease about it, I'm listening, I'm going, okay. And then it clicks when you tell me they were blue collar and they taught us that if you work hard, money will come. Okay, that's a cohesive belief. I totally agree. Sometimes I speak to couples where one person in the couple grew up, let's say white collar, maybe upper middle class, and the other grew up working class, blue collar. Their beliefs conflict and they can't figure out why, right? They think it's about, oh, she spends too much at Target or his truck is too expensive. But really, there's this belief, particularly with different class structures, which we never really talk about in America, which is if something's hard, let's just grind harder. And you can grind harder. There's no doubt about that. Law school, medical school. But there's a certain point where grinding a little harder just doesn't work. You have to change the way you think about money. For example, did your parents talk about investing, IRAs, compound interest when you were growing up?
Oh my God, no.
Exactly. And so some of the folks who I speak to, they said, we were talking about investing at age 5 around the dinner table. Here's what happens if you put a quarter in the bank. Now, imagine if a couple is meeting and one of them's been talking about investing since age 5 and the other has never talked about investment. That's what we discover when we peel back the curtain and we see how beliefs affect us. So if you're listening, the question I would ask you is, what conversations do you remember your family having when you were young about money? What phrases? Here's some examples that might sound familiar. We can't afford it. We don't talk about money in this family. We're not like those people. We don't need a fancy car, vacation, eating out. Any of these sound? You heard these, or your friends heard these?
No, but I have heard these.
Okay.
I'm nodding because I'm like, this is exactly what people hear.
Exactly. And so here's the consequence of that. Okay. So you hear the most common one is we can't afford it.
Yes.
Parents just say this like it just comes out of their mouth. Parents, you got to stop, because let me tell you what happens. They end up 40 years later talking to me, and they heard we can't afford it 10,000 times growing up, just reflexively. Oh, I want shoes. We can't afford it. I want a trapper keeper. We can't afford it. And then this person, hopefully they end up in a pretty nice job. You know, maybe they read my book. They set up some investments. Maybe they've done well. They have some decent amount of money. They come to me, they go, why do I still feel guilty ordering a salad when I eat out? And my partner is saying, we have the money. Look at our checking account. Why? Well, trace it all the way back to conversations you had starting at age 6. We can't afford it. And it really shows this key principle of money, which is the way you feel about money is highly uncorrelated to how much you've got in the bank.
Okay,
Say it
say
again.
that again.
Yeah. The way you feel about money is highly uncorrelated to how much you've got in the bank. Most of us believe if I have $5,000 more or $50,000 more or $500,000, finally I'll feel safe. And I'm here to deliver some unfortunate news, which is that's never going to happen. Now, you can change the way you feel about money. You can, but a number in the bank is never going to change your feelings about it because it's uncorrelated. You've got to work. If you want to live a rich life, you got to do two things at the same time. One, you got to understand the numbers, the basic numbers of finance. You've got to know your savings rate. You've got to understand the rule of 72. This stuff is actually not complicated. It's really fun. We could talk about them. I'll give you a couple of ratios. It's easy stuff. It's like a sixth grader.
I'm already zoning out on that. We'll get to that in a minute.
We'll
But
get
first,
to
I
that.
want to hear
But
the second part of
The
this.
second one is you've got to simultaneously work on improving your money psychology. You've got to put a practice into place to start feeling good about money because so much of society tries to get us to feel bad.
I love
You do
this.
those two things, you're going to be doing
I love
very
this
well.
because whether you're listening right now and you've got millions of dollars in the bank and you're set for life, or you are nearly $1 million in debt, like my husband and I used to be over a decade ago, starting with changing your psychology around money changes absolutely everything. And that's what we're going to focus on today, because that is something that we all need to do. Even if you've made a ton of money grinding it out, putting your head down, you probably haven't enjoyed it. And there is a way for you to change the way that you think and relate to and the psychology of money so that you have greater freedom, so that you have possibility, so that you're more present, so that you can be more confident and effective in your decision making. And that's exactly what Ramit is teaching millions of people to do. And it's available to all of us, regardless of where we've come from, what class we're in right now, what we've experienced in our lives. We can all just have a zero on the balance sheet, and we're going to go up from here, because Ramit's going to teach us how to change our psychology. So where exactly do we start, knowing that everybody comes to this conversation dragging historical baggage that they might not even be aware of about their relationship to just money and what it means?
Yeah. Let's imagine that it's the first day and you've decided to join the soccer team.
Okay.
People come with, some people have fancy shoes. Some people have no shoes. Some people are really physically fit. Others haven't run at all in years. And for this metaphor, I'll be the coach.
Okay.
And what I'm going to say is we're all in this together, and we're all going to start on the same page.
Okay.
Okay. So I like to start from a place of, we're going to have fun with this. Okay. I'll tell you what we're not going to do. I'm not going to say, pull out this 46-part spreadsheet and let's go through all your spending. Nah, everyone's going to leave. And I don't even want to, no one, it's irrelevant. Instead, I want to do something, an exercise together with you, me, and everybody listening.
Okay.
About what I call your money dials. So I'm going to ask you, let's do this together. And everybody listening, I want you to follow along. So Mel, if I asked you, what is something you love to spend money on? Not like, but truly love. Look at that smile. What would it be?
Oh, I love buying dessert. I like, now that I've started, I've gotten out of debt. I make a lot of money. My favorite thing, and I always joke that this is my version of a Lamborghini.
Uh-huh.
When I go out with a group of people, I order every dessert on the menu.
Okay. What does that get you? Tell me about that. Why?
It feels really decadent and fun, and it allows me to sample things without committing. And it's a way to take care of everybody at the table, because everybody kind of secretly wished that, somebody would order one of the desserts.
Yes.
And it's a way to relax kind of that grip, like, oh, I'm only allowed one dessert, so I got to pick the one. It's just like a playful way that's kind of ridiculous. But every time I do it, everyone's like, oh my God, that's so fun. And so I just love doing that. And I'm also a massive gift giver. So I love spending my money on other people and orchestrating gifts and creating experiences for people. Those are my two big things.
I love it. I hear so many things that I'm so thankful I get to highlight some of the things I just heard. So it sounds like your, what I would call a money dial, the thing you love is either gifting or eating out desserts.
Yes.
Would that be fair?
Yeah.
Okay, pick one. Which is the one that gets you really excited?
Gosh, I don't know.
I kind of think it's desserts, because you spent like 10 minutes talking about desserts.
Desserts.
Yeah. It's usually very obvious. Like people light up when they talk about.
Well, because I also feel like it is a gift. Because nobody does it for themselves. And it's ridiculous. Okay. Like, why would you order all the desserts knowing everyone's going to take one bite? Because we can. And because it's fun. And
it's very abundant.
Yeah. And it's about abundance and play and like that kind of, it makes me feel like a kid almost.
Okay. I love it. So here we have Mel in like a Willy Wonka chocolate factory, just like we get to get it all. And it's very abundant. So for everybody listening, the most common money dial or thing you love to spend money on is eating out. Number 2 most common is travel. Number 3 is health and wellness. Number 4 is convenience, which happens to be my money dial. And there's a variety of others, you can search online. Okay, so that's great. For everybody listening, you should identify the thing you love and go into that detail. If you're doing it with a partner, notice how I asked her, why? Tell me what? What does it mean to you? Get curious. And then the second question I have for you, Mel, is if you were able to quadruple your spend on your money dial, what would that look like and feel like for you?
I'd send those desserts to everybody in the restaurant.
Whoa, tell me more.
Just kind of spreading that exuberance and joy and this kind of psychologically, it's not financially extravagant if you can afford to do it. Like, it's not like you went out and spent $200,000 on a car, but there's this level of surprise and exuberance that and extravagance that kind of, there's delight, there's surprise, there's the fact that it tastes good. That if I spread that through a whole restaurant, I think the positive vibes that would go out and the positive energy that would swell in that space would be freaking unbelievable.
Amazing. Okay, I'm gonna ask you to take that and extend it even more.
Oh, okay.
Because I know you're very successful.
Uh-huh.
So let's say you eat out once a month, you could do that, no problem. It wouldn't even affect your bottom line. Let's turn it up even more. Not quadruple. Let's 10x it. Think expansively. Think beyond the confines of a restaurant.
Well, the first thing that came to mind was the Ben and Jerry's Free Cone Day.
Okay.
That they celebrate it was this year their 40th anniversary by having a day where they give everybody a free ice cream cone if they show up. And
How
they
would you do
typically
it?
support a charity, right?
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool.
So you would do that, like a day of, let's say, outside of school or something, or some charity, you're just going to get an ice cream truck and rent it and do that.
Well,
How's
when
that
you said
connect with you?
school, I was like, how cool would it be if like everybody got dessert at school for free?
Okay. I love your answers. There is a cohesive thread that goes through them. It's generosity, it's surprise, it's delight, and it just happens to be around food. But I'm willing to bet in your life there's a bunch of other things like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So for everybody listening, take this example we just heard and apply it to yourself. Let me give you some examples that will help.
Please.
So for most people, like I said, eating out is their number one money dial. And when I ask them to quadruple it, they almost always say the same like PG rated joke. They go, well, I'd probably have to watch what I eat because I'd be eating out 4 times a week. Ha 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 ha. I go, ha ha ha. And then I go, all right, listen, that's very linear thinking. The fact that you eat out once, so you're going to quadruple it, you're just going to eat out 4 times. That's linear. Like, okay, you could eat out 4 times a week, but are you going to eat at the same place? And people pause. They start thinking, oh, wait a minute. Okay, so if it's like Chipotle or whatever it is that you eat at, wow, okay. And I remember this young man in DC, I was speaking there, and he said the same joke, and I had the same unamused response. And I go, where would you eat? And he thought for a second, and he goes, you know what? I have a list of every Michelin-starred restaurant in DC. Young guy. I go, wow, okay, cool. You like food? He goes, yeah, I love it. I go, who would you take with you? And he got really quiet. The entire audience, pin drop silence. And he goes, I would take my family. Why? Because they could never afford to eat at places like that. Now that is a money dial. That is a vision of what you love today. And it could be modest, right? Buying dessert for your friends, that's very generous, but also pretty modest. But when you understand, hey, where could I go with this? Could I turn my dial up 2x, 4x, 10x? What would it look like? It wouldn't just be more of the same. I might change the quality. I might change the frequency. If I love clothes, as a young woman in Pasadena did, I asked her, you going to still shop at the same place, H&M? She goes, no. And when we really explored and played, we came up with this idea that one day she could fly to Italy with her mom and they could get something custom made together in Italy. Now, she can't do that today. She can't do it tomorrow. But now she has a vision of what excites her with money. That's how we get started.
Why is it important to start with a vision that's exciting?
Because money is such a drag for most of us. When you think of money, what are the first words that come to mind?
Debt.
Yep. Restriction, overwhelming.
Mistakes.
Am I too late? Mistake. It sucks. So are we surprised that Americans have terrible financial behavior? Well, I'm not really surprised when everything around us basically tells us, don't pay attention to this until it's too late. I mean, it's more exciting to talk about flossing than it is to talk about money. It sucks. But if we start talking about, oh my God, I love to eat. I'm unapologetic about spending extravagantly on the things I love, as long as I cut costs mercilessly on the things I don't. Well, suddenly it's a lot more fun to talk about.
It really is, because I think there's so much shame that we carry about money, because there's all these expectations that you have about how much you should have by now, what you should have done with it. If only I had invested back in the day in Apple, like I missed these opportunities. I should have done this. I should have done that. And that sort of negative story that you keep reinforcing to yourself that then has you go, oh, I can't buy the guacamole. I better not get a latte. Fuck.
Yeah.
It keeps you stuck in that story. But when you allow somebody to play and dream again, because money, it's not only psychology, it's sort of a vehicle to do those things.
Exactly. Yeah. And I love what you said about the guacamole example, is that because we feel shame, because we feel like it's too late, our field of vision narrows, almost like if you've ever felt like you're about to faint. Everything shrinks, and we shrink our own desires. So I'll often ask people, what is your rich life? And you know what they always say to me? They always go, I want to do what I want, when I want. I go, oh, God,
there we go.
Okay. And then I go, wow, that's so interesting. I never heard that one except for the 8 million times I heard it. I go, so what do you want? And they are stumped because we never actually thought about what our rich life is. And so then I'm gentle. I want them to come to it, but I also want to have a little fun with them.
Yep.
And so they'll say something like, well, I guess it would be cool if I had a beach house one day, but it doesn't have to be a big beach house. It could be small. It could be a shack. It could be dilapidated. I don't even need anything. I go, what the hell? We're talking about your rich life and you already shrunk your desires in 5 seconds? I don't allow that. I go, dream bigger, and then let's figure out if your finances support it, what investments you need to make. And hey, maybe you're not going to get a 9-bedroom place in the Hamptons, but maybe you could get a beautiful place, rent it for a week, or buy it in 10 years, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we minimize ourselves unnecessarily.
And then that cuts off our access to authentic inspiration.
Yeah. Nobody's inspired by a tiny vision. Nobody's inspired by the idea like, ooh, I could save 5% on coffee. Who cares? That's not exciting.
It's so true. I want to ask you a question on behalf of anyone that's listening that is up to their eyeballs in debt and is having trouble dreaming and is trying to make ends meet, or maybe it's not even the debt. It's that with 2 kids in college and bills to pay and a mortgage, they're just in those crunch years of just grinding it out.
Yeah.
What is the concept of a rich life? And can you walk us through, regardless of where we are financially, how we start to define it for ourselves? Because we've covered the money dials, but I want to just get a flat definition from you of what a rich life is and what are the steps you walk somebody through, regardless of where they are, to creating one.
A rich life is when you look at your life and you go, wow, this feels amazing. Now, you can have a rich life and still be in debt. That's okay. You can have a rich life and not be exactly where you want to be ultimately. But a rich life can be traveling 2 months a year. It can be buying a beautiful cashmere coat. A rich life can be picking up your kids from school every afternoon. The key is that your rich life is yours. It's not mine. It's not your friends, not your parents. It's yours. And in fact, the more you carefully define your rich life and really turn those dials up and down, the more bewildering your rich life will be to other people. I'll give you an example from my own life. My rich life is really weird to other people, and that's exactly what it should be. I love spending extravagantly on travel. I'm a hotel guy. I have a list of hotels in all parts of the world. I know the exact room I want to stay in. Like, I love it. I'm obsessed. That's my thing. I also love clothes. I love them. I spend a lot on it. And so those things are things I spend extravagantly on. On the other hand, my car is not that important to me. And to give you a point of comparison, I've spent more in 1 year on travel than I spent in 20 years on all of my car expenses added together.
Wow.
So that's crazy. That's bewildering. It makes no sense to somebody listening. And that's exactly how it should be. If you love camping, maybe you turn that dial up. You find a way to have smaller costs for your rent or mortgage. And instead, you're going camping, I don't know, X weeks per year. You've got some place you go that nobody else knows about, some equipment that's amazing. You take friends with you. Amazing. Not my thing. I've got a reader of mine who told me he retired in his 30s with his wife. They travel around the country in an RV. I go, that sounds like hell.
Yeah,
to
me
me.
too. No way.
But
to them?
I love that it's their rich life.
Yes. So are there particular questions other than the money dial that you would want us to ask ourselves or answer in order to start to really define it? Because I agree with you. Most people, when you ask them for real, what do you want? It's like,
It's hard. It's a really big question.
Yes.
So what we can do is we can zoom in and out.
Okay.
To help people create some context around it.
Okay.
So, I have this journal, which you can do solo or with your partner. And I'm going to give you a few exercises that are really helpful. Let's start big picture, and then we'll zoom really tight down to day to day.
Okay.
So this is a fun exercise. I did this one with my wife. We sat down and we said, let's create a 10-year bucket list. So in the next 10 years, what do we want to do that would make this an amazing and rich 10 years?
Whoa.
Okay. So we took 2 separate pieces of paper. We spent a few minutes. We wrote it down. And then we came back and compared it. And this is a really cool opportunity to recalibrate the way you talk about money, because it's dreamy. It's fun. You don't have to commit to anything. So you want to get curious. One of us is like, oh, I want to learn Spanish. And the other one goes, oh, cool. You want to do that online? Or like, would you want to go to Mexico City and do an immersion? The other one, for one of my things was I want to write a book at a hotel. Makes perfect sense. I don't necessarily love writing, but if I'm going to write a book, I'm going to write it in an amazing luxury hotel that I love.
Which one?
Okay, cool. Oh, so there was one in Kyoto that I love. And in fact, recently went there on a writing project. I achieved one of my 10-year things. Yeah. And the funniest part, my wife was going to Japan anyway with some friends. She goes, hey, why don't you go and work on your writing project? I know you love that hotel and you've got the time. Why don't you? And I was like, oh yeah, it didn't even occur to me. So sometimes you need somebody to remind you about your
Now,
life.
if you're single or you're newly divorced or you've just graduated from college, do you recommend that you grab a friend or a sibling or somebody, or is this something best
No, you
done?
can do it solo.
You can do it solo. Okay.
Yeah, you could totally do it solo. So you come up with a list of things, and it's things that are exciting, that you would look back on and be like, wow, that was a really cool 10 years. I remember that's memorable. Okay. Then, so the two of you if you're in a partnership, you've asked each other, if you're solo, you're looking at them, and you're picking one that really jumps out at you. Don't overthink it. It's the one that you go, I want to do that above all others.
In the next 10 years,
Yep.
I got to go to Australia for a month. In the next 10 years, I'm not saying that's mine, but I'm just saying, like, what are some of the things you've seen from the millions of people that you've helped?
We want to take a family trip to Italy. Super common. Everybody wants to go to Italy. And I love hearing it because I then get to help them dimensionalize it. Like, Italy alone is just a word. I want to know, what seat on the airplane are you flying? What season are you going? What are you wearing? Where are you eating? I want to know every detail to the point where we can almost smell it, because then it becomes vivid and aspirational. Okay. So that's what we're doing in this first process. It's actually really fun. Oh my God, we get to go on a pizza tour, whatever. Then you pick that one, and solo or together, you go, all right, let's actually make it happen. When do I want to do this? In our case, we decided we want to have an amazing 10-year wedding anniversary. We were inspired by some friends of ours who did it, and we were like, what? People actually do that? And then we're like, well, who cares if people do it? We want to do it. And so we said, that's it. We happen to know the exact date we want to do it and the location. If you want to go to Italy or wherever, you got to pick a specific month and year. It's got to now start getting specific. And then you got 2 more steps, and then you're good to go.
Hold on. Let me just clarify something.
Yeah.
What Ramit is teaching you to do is to dream again and to attach very positive and aligned emotion with what a rich life would feel like. And I think so many of you are going to have trouble even getting past this part and giving yourself permission to do it because of the amount of mistakes that you made. And, I'll just say, Ramit, when Chris's restaurant business was really struggling and we had liens on the house and couldn't pay for groceries at times, and I had lost my job, dreaming seemed impossible, but it was actually a lifeline, because it made me feel like this was going to be temporary, that we would figure out a way through this. And so I just want to underscore that that if you're like got crushing student debt right now, if you've gone through a divorce and you're in financial ruin, this is actually exactly what you need to do, Because if you continue to stare at the debt, you're going to feel disempowered, which means your actions will be disempowered. If we can give you a beacon out on the distance to raise your gaze and get you feeling inspired again, something to work toward, that we know based on the research, that's your big why when it comes to a goal. And so I love what you're doing here because it's the exact opposite of what a financial advisor would tell you, which is you'd sit down, you'd go through the numbers, you'd feel like an imbecile. Yeah. You'd basically get somebody politely telling you you're fucked and you shouldn't buy coffee out and you shouldn't enjoy yourself until you get your debt under control and you pay this off. And that can come. But let's first get the conversation fun and exciting again, because when you're in that kind of mood, you're going to be more motivated to do the tedious bullshit that any financial advisor can tell you, correct?
Correct, 100%. And thank you for slowing us down and really providing the context behind why we are doing it this way. I don't want us to shrink our world to a spreadsheet. That's not going to help you. That's not going to help anybody. Instead, what I want to do is expand our vision, even if it feels impossible to dream. And to say, look, just in this moment, on this piece of paper, let's dream for a second. And it's having a conversation with yourself or your partner and saying, we may not be able to even see how we can get there today, but we've got time. And if we put the intention behind it and we marshal our resources, I think we can do this.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Okay. Absolutely beautiful.
So you've got one powerful vision of what you want to accomplish in the next 10 years. I say powerful because it's not like eating at a restaurant. That's not powerful enough. I had a guy once tell me his rich life is coffee. And I just sat there and then I said, that's boring. I just told him point blank and he was shocked. Oh, somebody's telling me my rich life is boring. I was like, yeah, that's boring. You can't just say coffee. Like this guy had a lot of money. I go, okay, if you love coffee, then tell me you want to go to Guatemala and take a behind-the-scenes tour of a farm. Tell me you want to go to the National Barista Competition and bring somebody. Tell me something beyond I want to order an extra Dunkin' Donuts coffee shipped to my house. No, that's not acceptable. So sometimes I have to challenge people to think bigger. You got something big. It could be skydiving. It could be a trip, whatever. All right. You know the date.
Okay.
Specifically the
month.
month.
So in the next 10 years, you got to pick a date, the month and the year.
Yep. You got to be specific. Then this is the hardest part, but it should take no more than 5 minutes.
Okay.
Approximate the cost. So if you're going to Italy, people, they start to freak out because
I just freaked out.
Yeah. It's like we revert back to 7th grade math and we're like, oh, got to do the quadratic equation and get it perfect. I go, listen, you don't need any decimal points. Okay. In fact, you could approximate on the back of a napkin. How much is a flight going to cost approximately? Add 15% because you forgot about tax and all that stuff. What's a hotel going to cost? I don't know. Google hotel, Italy, Rome, whatever. Okay, let's double the price because maybe we want to stay at a nice hotel. All right, fine. That's the level that we're talking about here.
Okay.
And if you have two different, like my wife and I had two completely different numbers. Mine was way bigger. And my rule is if you got two numbers, go with the bigger one.
Got it. Okay.
Go with the bigger one. And so now you've got a beautiful vision. You've got a month and year. You've got the approximate amount it's going to cost. The last step is to make it a reality. How do you do that? Let's say that it's 10 years away. It's going to cost $10,000. I'm just making it up. Mm-hmm. That means you need to be saving $1,000 a year or roughly, $100 a month.
Okay.
Roughly. Okay, we could do that. Suddenly you start to understand a little concept of like time and money, and you set up an automatic savings from your checking account to your savings account for $100 a month, and you call it Dream Trip 2030. Boom. Every month that you are talking about money in what I call a Rich Life Review, it's like a video game. You see, we're getting 3% closer, and that is a joy.
I love this. And I know that is that what you call a conscious spending plan?
Conscious spending plan's a little different, okay. But it would incorporate that, yes.
Okay. Can you tell the story of how you went from taking notes in the corner
to
figuring out what to do?
Yes.
How did
Okay.
you do that?
So for me, what it looked like was I started to think, okay, what am I doing right now in my business that could maybe translate? And I was doing marketing and some social media and a little bit of like online education kind of stuff. So I started to look at that and I liked what I did. I didn't like the fact that I wasn't free, but I liked the work that I did. So I started to think maybe I could teach social media online. It wasn't my end all be all. You just need a starter idea. I just needed something to get me going.
Okay, let's stop there.
Yeah.
You just need a starter idea, everybody.
Yes.
I'm literally going to baby step everybody because every single thing that Amy's going to talk about in her own journey is one of those obstacles that you're going to have to remove. Because, you know, if you think about what you currently do for somebody else, whether it's project management or what you studied in school, maybe you were a marketing major and you spend your life on social media because you don't have a job yet. Guess what? You probably understand a lot about social media.
Yep.
You seem to like it a lot. Like there are things that you do naturally. Maybe your house is super insanely clean and everybody constantly remarks about how clean it is and how good it smells. Maybe that's what you just do naturally.
Yep.
Maybe it's something you used to do a long time ago, but you know, starting with, well, what are you good at? What do other people say that you like? And so that was your process. So
Yes.
here you are, you're still at your job.
Still at my job.
And for somebody who's unemployed right now listening, or they're a student about to graduate, like what are you suggesting? Do you suggest they do this process while they're unemployed or while they're looking for a different job?
Absolutely. This is something that no matter where you are in your journey, if you have that desire, that calling, that there's got to be something better for me, something different, this is what you do. You start to think about, what am I good at? What could be a starter idea? And then what I did is I started to look online on social media and started to go for like total immersion around what kind of business I'd want to create. So I wanted to teach social media or do social media. That's how I wanted to start. So I started to follow all of these accounts on social media that were doing what I wanted to do. These other women and men that had the businesses I wanted. So the first step I did, I call it this process of unbossing, which is learning or believing that you could lead yourself and you don't need someone else to lead you. So I thought, I've got to unboss myself, which is I have to think like a boss.
Okay, now everybody stop, because I want to make sure that you have this, because this is another tool.
Yes.
I don't care if you're trying to get ahead in your career or if you want to figure out what to do next in your career, or you truly do want to start something and grow it into a business. Unbossing yourself is a tool that you can use to change the way that you think.
Yes.
Because most of us grow up in households where we see our caregivers going to work for somebody else. So you already have a mindset where you think safety comes from being somebody's employee. You already have a mindset where you believe that, oh, those benefits, oh, that salary, oh, that, you know, kind of savings account, all that stuff that I saw my parents chip away and try to do, you think that that is the way to financial freedom. And what I'm here to open your eyes to is this idea, what if you had a different mindset? What if you started to think like somebody who has their own business? And what I will tell you, being somebody that has my own business and that has a great team, it's that our team are people who think like bosses.
Yes.
Because a boss means you take responsibility for what you're doing. A boss means you figure shit out instead of sitting around and licking your wounds and feeling sorry for yourself. That this unbossing is a process that you have to go through in order to get yourself to think differently about how you're showing up. And so what are the components of unbossing your mindset and your actions?
I love what you said about no matter if you plan on staying in your 9-to-5 job or looking for another job if you get laid off or starting your own business, if you adopt the mentality of unbossing yourself and you actually start thinking like a business owner, you're going to show up so much better in every area of your life, because someone who is unbossed, they're not looking for everyone's approval. They're not asking everyone how to make a decision. They're not coming to the table and saying, I'm stuck, what do I do? They might come to the table and say, I'm stuck, what do I do? I've got these two options. What do you think is best? That kind of thing. So it's changing your mindset and really stepping into more confidence that I've got this. I'll figure this out. Watch me kind of mentality.
You're an amazing person, and you have the ability to impact so many people's lives. And I don't know if you realize just how powerful you are. That your energy, your love, your enthusiasm, being radically generous with it, it can change absolutely anybody's day. And when you change somebody's day in a positive way, that great day can become a great week. And that great week can roll into an amazing month. And that amazing month can turn into an incredible year. You just have no idea what somebody's dealing with. My friend Ed Millette, who is amazing, you should follow him. He's one of my favorite people on the planet. He told me this story about how there is a person out in the world who was there when his father was struggling with alcoholism. And this stranger got his dad help. And Ed said if it weren't for that stranger, Ed wouldn't be here. And that one act of kindness from one person can change somebody's entire life. And you have that power. And so I want you to think as you head into your day about the image of blowing bubbles. You know when a kid is blowing bubbles and the bubbles catch the sunlight and they float around and they fly away? It feels so good, doesn't it? It makes you smile. And you can stand there on a beautiful sunny day and blow bubbles and they drift off into space, and who knows how far they go. Your energy is just like that. And you can spread good energy, and you should. How do you do that? Be generous with the I love yous. Be super generous, telling people I appreciate you. In fact, I have a habit every single day. I make it a habit to tell somebody that I appreciate them. And I do that by either reaching out to a friend and telling them that I miss them and I'm thinking about them. I have a friend who's going through a really challenging moment right now with her dad. Hospice has been called in, and I'm texting her every morning, telling her that I'm sending her a hug and that she doesn't need to text me back, but I just want her to know that I'm here for her. I tell that to people that help me in the grocery store. I tell it to anybody, honestly, because we all need to hear it. Thank you for helping me. Thank you for being here. I love complimenting people's nails or their jewelry or their hairstyle or their socks and smiling. And don't forget your family. When somebody walks in the door, how do you greet them? Do you put a big smile on your face? Do you run to the door? Do you say, welcome home? Oh my God, I hope you had a great day. I always give our son Oakley the biggest hug, and I hold it extra tight, and I tell him I'm so happy to see him. Because every time you do this, you smile, you wave, you high five somebody, you give them a hug, you tell them that you love them, you text somebody out of the blue, you are a force for good. If you're staying in a hotel like I'm going to be tonight, leave a note for the person that's cleaning your room, a thank you, a smiley face, tell them you appreciate them. We all need to hear it. And when you become radically generous with your positive energy, with your compliments, with your enthusiasm, with your love, it spreads unbelievable waves of joy and positivity, lifting people up in ways that you'll never know. When you have the revelation that the voice that you've listened to for years, the voice that's held you back, that made you feel like shit, that it's actually not even yours, that can make your heart seize for a minute. It's kind of one of those like, wait, what? And then when I add on top of it that you're not to blame for the crap that somebody programmed into your head. You were just a little person with 3 pounds of macaroni that was trying to absorb everything around it. And our brains love patterns, and it picks up on patterns of speaking. And that's what your brain did. And so if you're having this revelation, holy shit, I've thought that everything's my fault for my entire life because somebody made me believe it was. And then I held on to that belief. Don't freak out. This is great news because so many people spend their entire lives not even realizing that it's possible to change the way you think. It is possible to put a new playlist in your mind. It is possible to filter the world completely differently and to make your brain work for you. Now, are you going to have positive thoughts all day long? No. Are you going to be like, 1,000% confident? No. But can you stop torturing yourself? Yes. Can you start encouraging yourself? You better believe you can. Can you separate what your narcissistic piece of shit ex-spouse said to you from what you actually believe about yourself? That you want to believe about yourself? Yeah, you can. Can you do it overnight? No. You're going to have to work at this, just like the people in your past worked over time at saying things to you that beat you down. This stuff takes hold over time. But the good news is your brain is super responsive. And when you combine what you're learning about resetting your mind with healing your nervous system and the science of making and sticking to new habits, all of which you are absolutely smart enough and capable enough to apply to your life because your friend Mel Robbins, I am not going to make this scientific. I'm going to give you the science so that you know this stuff works and you can count on it and trust it. But I make this stuff so dead simple that literally your kids and I can do it. And so you can do everything that you are learning on the Mel Robbins podcast. You can change your mind. You can kick the bully out of your head. You can program in new thoughts. You can actively work to change the reticular activity system in your brain, that network of neurons that filters the world. You can take better care of your brain, and taking care of your physical brain will also help the thoughts in your mind. You can develop new healthy habits using the 3 simple aspects of a habit based in science and focusing on triggers and rewards. And you can do this. You can make it easier. And you can heal your nervous system, which is the trifecta of transformation. We hit the habits, the mindset, and the nervous system. Holy shit, you're like the Terminator of transformation. You could do anything. I believe that. I just have way too much evidence to the otherwise. And if you're cynical about that, take a look at who taught you to be cynical. Just because life hasn't worked out for you the way that you wanted to up until this point, who fucking says it's not going to work out for you and the best days aren't ahead? I'll tell you who says. You do. You decide whether or not you're going to continue to let all this crap you're not responsible for to hold you back, or you're going to take responsibility for what happens next. Heal your nervous system. You can do that, and you don't have to spend $1. Change your mind. You can do that, and you don't have to spend $1 to do it. Make new habits. Habits that actually help you get what you want, what you deserve. You can do that, and you do not have to spend money to do it. I want to talk to you about 3 simple steps that you can take to create powerful changes in your life. And I'm talking really big changes. Yes, the steps are simple, but simple over time creates amazing results. And simple is important because if it's simple, you can do it. As I already said, these are the 3 steps that led me to launching this podcast. They're the 3 steps that I used to help me start working on my marriage and making my mental health stronger. They're also the 3 steps that helped me make the move from a very busy and stressful life outside of Boston, Massachusetts, where my husband Chris and I had raised our family for the last 26 years, and make a major move and a major change to a simpler lifestyle by moving to a tiny town in southern Vermont. Now, using these 3 steps, I not only changed my life, I have reinvented every aspect of my life over the past 2 years. And today, I'm going to share those steps with you. I'm going to tell you the whole story. And I want to help you. I want to inspire and empower you to make the changes that you have been thinking about as you go about your day-to-day life. You know, speaking of life, I think about life as one long road trip. Your past right now is behind you. It's in the rearview mirror. And the future, it's right out that windshield. That's why the windshield is bigger than the rearview mirror, because we're not going backwards, people. We're not doing that to ourselves. We are going ahead. And you know what's in front of you? An open road. Every single birthday, I believe, is a mile marker on this road trip called life. It's a chance to pull over for a second and think about the open road ahead. Where do you want to go next? How fast do you want to go? How slow? Who do you want to have in the car with you? There's endless metaphors around this, and it helps me think about this major topic of reinvention and change. Now, I love birthdays. I'm sure you do too, and I love them for so many reasons. Because every time you're celebrating a birthday, I mean, think about what you're actually celebrating. We're celebrating the fact that you're still here. We're celebrating your existence, that you're breathing, that you're alive. How cool is that? And you want to know what else we're celebrating when we celebrate your birthday? We're celebrating the possibility and magic that your life and the future and that next year holds for you. Now, there's one part of celebrating your birthday that I want you to really think about, okay? You know that moment when the cake comes out? Your mom or your dad or your spouse or your friends or the waiter, they bring out that cake and the candles are burning on top and everyone starts singing happy birthday to you. And then they put the cake down, you look at the candles, you close your eyes, and you make a wish. And for just a moment, time stops. Have you ever noticed that as that cake gets closer to you and you start going inside and thinking about the wish that you're going to make, you don't even hear anybody singing anymore. You hear something inside yourself. You hear something deep from within. You close your eyes, you grab that wish, and you blow out those candles as if it's going to magically make that wish come true. And when you open your eyes, you are present to the wish. You feel excited for the year, and you can almost see all the new possibility that you could tap into in the year ahead. Well, researchers have a name for this exact moment. It's called the fresh start effect. When you make that birthday wish, you break from your past self, and this transformational window of time opens up. You think bigger. You feel hopeful and inspired. And there's some incredibly interesting research that explains why these moments are so powerful. I'm looking right now at a study from the Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania, where they've studied the intrinsic motivational power of this fresh start effect. Researchers studied moments in our life where we feel motivated to make big changes, and birthdays are an example of that. It's as if a birthday hands you a blank slate, a clean page, a fresh start at a whole new year. And this feeling inside you ignites an intrinsic, motivational, aspirational force that's hardwired within you. It's this power to change. Now, you've experienced this fresh start effect at other times in your life, too. Just think about the new year, January 1st. Hello, fresh start effect. Now, January 1st is one of those moments where all of a sudden, last year ends. Boom, slam the door on that year. And something new opens up. A whole new you. A clean slate. An open road. This is why, by the way, so many people start a diet on January 1st. Hello, Mel Robbins. So many people go to the gym for the first time on January 1st. It gives them a natural mental starting line to cross on a new leg of the journey called life. How cool is that? You also experience this fresh start motivation with every new semester in school, the start of a new sports season. You feel like this could be our year, right? That's the fresh start effect. The birth of a child, a breakup, a wedding, a death. These are all moments in time where something ends and something else begins. And it's not only happening in the physical space, it's happening in the psychological and spiritual space. That's why so much stirs inside you, according to the research. I just realized, this fresh start effect, this is probably why I am addicted to buying new journals. Every time I get a new journal, I crack it open and I literally feel like a new Mel is about to pour out on all those open, empty pages. This phenomenon is so powerful that researchers have even created a label to describe anything that triggers that fresh start motivation that stirs inside you, like your birthday, January 1st, that new journal, a new semester at school. These things are called temporal landmarks. Now, let me explain what a temporal landmark is. A temporal landmark is a date or an experience or a physical thing that marks the passing of time. January 1st, for example, is a date. It marks the end of one year and the beginning of a new year. And when the new year begins, you cross that starting line mentally to think about a whole new you. Your birthday is the exact same thing. It's another year, another mile on the road of your life. And this creates all kinds of new possibilities about the stretch of open road ahead. A new semester is an experience that's always brimming with excitement. New friends, new experiences, a chance to think differently about who you are and how you're going to show up and what you want. A breakup or a divorce. Now, that's a major temporal landmark because it not only marks time, it also impacts your identity, your life as a couple before, and now your life as you after the breakup. But here's what researchers have found that I think is fascinating about what happens to your psychology and motivation and thinking. Temporal landmarks not only mark the passing of time, they open up a whole new mental accounting period. Just like an accountant closes the books at the end of a fiscal year and opens up a fresh page to begin a whole new fiscal year, the event, whether it's January 1, the first of the month, a Monday, the end of a fiscal year, or making a wish on your birthday, this landmark creates a break from the past you. It separates you from the things that you feel are imperfect, and it silences all that judgment that you have about yourself. And here's the cool thing. When you shut that judge inside you down, you open the door to a whole new vision for yourself. It creates a break from your past self, the things that you feel are imperfect about you or your life, and the things that you judge yourself for. And here's what's really amazing. When you stop judging yourself and you stop focusing on what you think is wrong with your life, you open up the floodgates to what might be. So let's go back to that moment when you make a wish on your birthday. As soon as you see that cake coming with those candles burning, you go in. You stop hearing everyone singing. You close your eyes. Why? Because mentally, a new accounting period is opening up. You stop caring about the song and the people around you and what's happening outside of you. You tune into what you're feeling on the inside, in your heart, in your soul, what you dream about, that thing that's calling from you deep inside that normally you can't hear because you're so focused on all the stupid stuff that we all obsess about. No one even has to tell you to close your eyes. You see that cake coming. You know that you can make a wish. You just do it naturally. And when you go inward, you're disrupting the circuitry of your old thinking, your old judgments, and your past habits. For just a moment, you're escaping the old you. And then you make the wish, a wish for what could be, a wish for what will happen this year, in the next year of your life. And the same thing happens when you sit down at the end of the year and you create resolutions, not the one you share with people at a party. I'm talking about the real ones that you write down in your journal. Here's another moment like that. You know that moment after a really painful breakup? This one takes a little bit of time because you basically need to cry and feel bad about yourself for about a month or two, you know. And then one morning, you wake up and you realize, oh my God, I'm happy that's over. I'm better off single. And you let go of the relationship and the version of you who was holding on to it for so long. And more importantly, in that moment of acceptance, you stop judging yourself. And you realize you'll be okay. No, you'll be more than okay. You're going to be great because of this. And then you start to do the work to create a better life. These temporal landmarks are a big psychological deal because something really profound happens inside of you for a second. You snap out of all the stressful bullshit that's going on and the relentless self-criticism, and you have this mental freedom, this temporary break from your normal negative thinking, and you allow yourself to consider the bigger picture. You allow yourself to envision the future you. You tap into your deepest hopes, your wildest dreams, and your most exciting aspirations. You see a vision for a better life. You see that, yes, you deserve to be happy. And that's exactly what I want you and I to experience today on episode 1 of the Mel Robbins podcast. Let's hold each other's hand and sit side by side and imagine what might be possible in the next year of our lives if we let go of the past and we hold on to our dreams. That's the invitation I'm giving to you. Allow yourself to have a fresh start. You don't have to wait for your birthday or January 1st to change your life. You can turn the page on the past and start writing that new chapter today. And in just a few minutes, I'm going to share the 3 simple steps that you can use to create that powerful change that you've been wishing, wanting, or dreaming about. The fact is, change is possible, and you can't convince me otherwise. I know you might try, but I know that it's a fact. Change is possible. It's possible for everyone. And it's possible for you. Now, we're going to talk about this in depth, but the bottom line is, if you can imagine that new chapter, there is a way to make it happen. And I guarantee you, someone else on the planet has done it. I mean, there's about 8 billion people on this planet. Someone else has faced what you're going through right now. Someone else has built the company that you dream about building. Someone else has gone from where you are to where you envision yourself going. Someone else has improved their relationship, healed their mental illness. And if someone else has done it, you can do it too. Start seeing people in the world around you as evidence of your own success being possible. I want you to start saying to yourself, if they can do it, then I can do it. Other people's success just proves that you're worthy of what you want. And more importantly, that you're capable of reverse engineering how they got there and doing the work to get it for yourself. Now, I get it. It might not happen the same way or look the same way. You might not be starting on the same starting line. And it might not take the same amount of time. But if you keep telling yourself, if they can do it, I can do it, you're going to change your mindset. And you're going to see that, yes, it's true. There is limitless success, love, money, and happiness. There's enough for everyone, and there's enough for you. And I want you to use me as an example from time to time. If Mel Robbins can do it, then I can do it. And honestly, I'm going to be looking to you for the same encouragement from time to time, because I'm sure there are things you've accomplished or experienced that I haven't. So let's agree. We're going to encourage one another through this thing, okay? I know how to create massive change because I just did this in my own life. Over the past 2 years, I've completely reinvented myself in every aspect of my life. And look, I'm not being dramatic. It's a fact. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. The Mel Robbins that you're hearing right now is not the Mel Robbins that I was just 2 years ago. 2 years ago to this exact birthday, on the day that I turned 52, I did not wake up and feel like $1 million. I did not see an open road. I saw a dead end. I was not kicking ass and taking names. 2 years ago, when I turned 52, I was sucking wind. I woke up all alone. I felt lost and stuck and scared. Here's what was going on in my life. I had just been fired from my dream job. And look, I'd been fired from other jobs in the past when I was younger, but boy, at 52, that really stings. Then with COVID, the speaking and event business came to a halt. And as a small business owner, I'm responsible for the livelihood and healthcare of 15 families, including my own. So I started to panic. As the income dried up, I had no idea how I was going to continue to make payroll. And to add to that, I had people in my inner circle that betrayed me. They lied to me, they stole from me. So I just felt rocked because people that I trusted, that I had counted on, had violated that trust. That's what made me feel so damn alone. Plus, then college was canceled. Remember that? So we were all under the same roof with our 3 kids, 2 of whom were in college, and they were all anxious and angry and sad and grieving. I mean, it was like living with caged animals. I bet you felt a lot of these same things. And finally, my husband, Chris, he had just been diagnosed with long-term depression. I mean, talk about a shitstorm. I felt like absolutely everything was spiraling out of control. So here I am on my 52nd birthday with all this going on. And I wake up in the bunk room at my mother-in-law's house where we're quarantining. And I just started crying. The sadness that I had been trying to push down, it just poured out of me. And I instinctually picked up my phone and I just started filming how I felt. I figured someone out there on the internet would relate. And maybe, just maybe, they might even be able to give me some encouragement back. Now, when we come back after a short word from our sponsors, I'm going to play that video that I made on my 52nd birthday. And you're going to hear that sad, lost Mel Robbins. And I want you to hear it because I want you to know I've been there. And I've been there recently. And clearly, if I'm where I'm at now, kicking ass, taking names, going after my dreams, doing better than ever, I know how to bridge the gap from where you are to where you want to go. And later in the episode, I'm going to share those 3 steps with you that I took to make powerful changes and reinvent my whole life so that you can use those same proven, simple steps to make whatever changes you want in the next year of your life. Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed that video, by God, please subscribe because I don't want you to miss a thing. Thank you so much for being here. We've got so much amazing stuff coming. Thank you so much for sending this stuff to your friends and your family. I love you. We create these videos for you. So make sure you subscribe. Mwah.